So usually on my working days from 10:30 to 6:30 largely that's the working hours. This gentleman is my boss, but for the next half an hour or so that you would be listening to this episode, he would be just my guest and I the host of the show. The show that you're listening to is a totally Indian football show with me, your host Siju, and I have with me, apart from being my boss, he's also the co-founder and CEO of enJogo and BBFS, which is Bhaichung Bhutia Football Schools. Previously, he's worked with AIFF. He's also an IIT graduate and much more things. And I think we'll dwell into all of that in the course of this episode. Well, Kishore Taid, thank you so much for joining on the show. And you are joining us all the way from your hometown. It's lovely to have you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Siju. Thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. So let's kick start with things that we have for today's episode. And I think firstly, all of us, even as I said, for the rest of the course, this episode, we are just a host and you're my guest. So I think I can take the liberty of asking you all kind of questions. So let's start with. It's been the 13th. I think BBFS, if I'm not wrong, is entering into its 13th year, or I'll already enter into its 13th year. And if I may ask you to go back a little, and in the inception of when you, I think I would like to know, and also the listeners would like to know how you probably approached Baichung with this idea and thought, and how did that conversation go by? I hope you are okay to share that with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Why not? I mean, that is actually one of the most common questions I encounter. But back then, when I was in banking, and a friend of mine named Anurag Khilnani, who's also from the same college, and he was also a banker, and both of us had decided to leave our jobs and explore something in football. And actually, it's quite funny that first we tried, basically, we wanted to do something that would at least help us to sustain ourselves financially as well. And after a lot of research, what we found out was that Baichung was probably the only brand that had a positive image at that time in Indian football. And so we tried our best to actually get his contact and somehow get in touch with him. And thankfully, one of our super seniors, who was also part of our college football team during his time, actually was working in Kolkata. I think he was working with an infrastructure company, and he somehow told us that we had actually pitched a project, a real estate project to Baichung. So I might just have the number somewhere, in the office network. So we said, why don't you try and get it for us? So he got a few numbers for us, and we tried calling him, and I think it was Madhuri, Baichung's wife, who picked up. And luckily, Baichung was right there at home at that time, and he just came on the phone, and we said, we are like two recent graduates, from IIT Delhi, and we want to actually meet you and talk some interesting projects with you. So he was kind enough at that time to say that, yeah, I'm available in Kolkata. Why don't you come down? Come to the East Bengal practice ground and we'll meet there. So that's how it started. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, we did a little bit of work, but not too much. But luckily, we got his contact number. We got to meet him, and one meeting led to the other. And, that's where, so it led us to where we are today.
Right. If I may even ask you a little more to share, when you went to the East Bengal camp, right, the training ground, and that's your first interaction, one on one meet now, how did you pitch yourself, or how did you pitch this project, and what was his first reaction to it?
See, the first thing actually was not about a football academy, the first idea that we had in mind. We actually went to Baichung to tell him that, Baichung, whatever you want to do in sports, after your career is over, we will be very happy to help you. So we had actually pitched to him some kind of a consulting project, but he said that, I don't want to, at that point in time, I'm not looking to, I would like to actually start a football academy project, but then I can help you with with my experience and my network and so on. However, I want the football academy to be financially sustainable. Okay. And he said that a lot of my seniors, a lot of my friends have also started football academies, but after running for a few years, they closed down. So whatever project I want to do, you have to make sure that it is financially sustainable. So that was one thing which I very vividly remember. And yeah, I mean, one more interesting thing actually, I remember when he met us for the first time, he said that that was the time when Three Idiots had released. So he actually asked us, have you guys watched the movie and come to me?
Great. I think you, as you mentioned, that's one point that you kept closer to you and you stuck to it. And I would say that 13 years down the line, you've definitely kept his word of keeping the company financially sustainable and probably heading into making it even larger than what it was in the start. So, heading forward now, What do you think where it is at this point? It's been entering the 13th year. How do you see yourself, as a co-founder? What is your perspective on the current stage where BBFS is at?
Yeah, see, 13 years, a decent amount of time. This project took us to, at least personally, it took me to help me to experience everything that is there in Indian football. And today we feel blessed to have survived a lot of ups and downs. And today, the stage that we are, I feel that we are in a position where we can actually dream about having, a football academy in every district of the country. And that's what BBFS is aiming for. And hopefully, in the next 3 to 5 years' time, we will be there.
Right. Now, when I introduced you, the listeners also must have got to know that I introduced you as the CEO and co founder of BBFS and also enJogo. Now, if I may ask you to tell our listeners and a little bit more about what is the enJogo project.
So, actually, the long term vision of enJogo is, if in a few words I have to explain, it is basically going to be the sports learning app. And today it is the football learning app because we are only into football. So we are planning to go deep into football, solve some of the biggest problems in football through technology, with the use of technology. And once we get there, we would also expand to other sports as well by using the learnings and the same fundamentals. Okay, so basically, as of today, there are the biggest, I think, the most exciting product which we launched about 4 months back was the trials product, where a player from any part of the world can actually go to the app, look at what are the upcoming trials, and register themselves. And most interestingly, after the trial is over, within 24 hours, they also get a personalized report card based on their performance in the trials. Now, that is one. The other thing is also about academies. Basically, all our students who are part of any of our academies that are available on the platform of enJogo, they can get feedback, daily feedback of each of their training sessions, as well as when they play matches, and evaluations on a regular basis, like quarterly or half monthly reports, everything in the palm of their hand. So that is enJogo in a nutshell. Basically, we are trying to create an end-to-end platform where all sports enthusiasts in the long run will be able to use in order to learn in a most effective way and the fastest way.
Right. And if can you also probably share, if you can, that is, which other sports are you already looking at? Have you already shortlisted which other sports you want to enter with regards to enJogo, or is that still under deliberation?
No, we have more or less shortlisted two more sports to start with, which are basically cricket and badminton. And we have been doing a lot of research over the past year or so, but we want to jump into it when we are totally ready, because now, with the scale and the brand that we have been able to build in football, the bars have been raised for ourselves, right? So we want to make sure that we do a great job at it. So maybe, hopefully, sometime over the next 10 to 12 months, you'll see us expanding to other sports as well.
Right. I think you already mentioned the point I would also bring up is the trials campaign that you guys are doing. And it is 100 trials, 100 cities, and unlimited dreams. That's the name of the campaign. And I don't think anybody else, it's also an over ambitious goal to have. But you guys started, if I'm not wrong, from October onwards. And the goal is to make sure it goes to every city and every kid gets an opportunity to come to their closest city and, be part of BBFS. So if you can share how has it been going so far and what are your takeaways. It's still ongoing, but if you can share what's happening with that project and how did you come up kickstarting this campaign.
See, actually, Siju, our ambition is to do 1,000 trials, 1,000 cities project, in the next 3 to 5 years' time. But this is only the start. Since this was the first year, we wanted to go to 100 places and see how it goes. And the most interesting thing about it is that, first we build the technology platform to do it, and which has not only really streamlined the process, but also, most importantly, from the user's perspective, from the players and the parents perspective, they get total transparency in terms of how those trials are organized, as well as how their players are rated. Okay, now, so far we have been able to cover about 45 cities since October, like you mentioned. And in these 45 trials, almost 3,000 kids have participated from different age groups. And we have now, for each of these 3,000 kids, we have their assessment and their ratings, of course, based on that particular performance on that particular day, which is not again, not a complete assessment of the player, but it is just the assessment of that particular event on the scheduled day. So yeah, so all these things make it like, I mean, it's really exciting, to see how it can, the opportunities that it can bring in future, because the same technology, the same platform can be used to conduct trials by all the other clubs and academies in India. And soon we will be rolling it out for other academies and clubs as well. But the first year we wanted to kind of experiment within the company itself, so that we can streamline it further and package it better for next year.
Right now, talking a little bit more about the trials section, when what's the preparation like for the team that's going out to scout the talents? And as you already mentioned, that in that 1 hour or 2 hour window that you see, it's not like the ideal assessment of the player. So, what are the key things that probably the coaches who go out there, the scouts who go out there, how do they prepare themselves, and what are the things that they notice?
Right. So there are two teams basically, and there's a lot of preparatory work that goes on behind the scenes. So there is an operations team which prepares the schedule well in advance and make sure that the grounds are available, all the back end logistics and so on. And the other side is the technical team. So the technical team actually comprises of our coaches from all across India. So we have about 170 coaches from all across the country in different regions. So the next challenge becomes how to standardize it as much as possible, so that the criteria of rating is similar across all the cities and across all age groups. Okay, now that is obviously a big challenge. So the way we are doing it is that every week, on a weekly basis, so every weekend we are organizing the trials, and post the trials on a weekly basis, the team, the whole technical team, there are about 30 35 coaches who are involved in this entire exercise, and they all meet up on a weekly basis after every set of trials to discuss their learnings and also how to improve in the next round. So over time, by doing this multiple times, so since October, for instance, it has been about 20 25 weeks. So we have had these 20 odd sessions of feedback and continuous learning on a weekly basis, which we hope will be able to help us to do a better job at assessing these players.
Right. You also mentioned that you call them up, the ones who are selected in the first round, then you call them up for the next one. So all of these, I believe, are done through. How are they intimated that when will they be called? Is that also available on the app that you mentioned?
No, so the assessments are available online. So it also helps our central technical team, the technical lead, and so and the leadership team to actually go through the data and make sure that the ratings are consistent and homogeneous. And then on that basis, the shortlisted candidates, we will be releasing the names of the shortlisted candidates so far within the next couple of weeks. And the idea is to call them for the final round of trials at one of our residential academies sometime in March. And hopefully those who get selected will definitely get up to 100% scholarship, which is like their full boarding, full studies and football training exposure, all their costs being taken care of by us.
Right. Now, coming to the next point, which is the residential academy program, right? You started off with football schools, which is your, in your weekly things, that's the norm across academies in India or even globally. But then switching and starting off a residential academy program is never easy, though everyone dreams of having. Even clubs at the highest level want to do that because that's the ideal pathway that you're building, and you're also making a team for your senior team as well. So, how did that switch happen, and when did you decide to you are now spread in 5 different states with regards to residential academy programs? So how did that go about, and what were the challenges that you tried to solve and that have you probably came across in this due course?
See, what we have always believed is that everyone in India, wants sports to become better, but there are lots of different challenges. So our belief is that the biggest problem is not of interest or people not wanting or children not wanting to play sports or parents not willing to expose their children to sports, but the biggest problem is basically that of accessibility and also of a broken journey. If you look at the journey of an aspiring footballer or a cricketer, the pathways do not exist, as a result of which parents are like really skeptical about introducing their children to sports, or making their children spend more time in sports. So what we decided was to make an end-to-end program. So only if we can give them like some a certainty in their development journey, from like a toddler or from when they're 5 years old, from grassroots until professional, Unless we build that bridge, it is always going to be challenging. A lot of parents are scared about, or they don't know enough about career opportunities. They don't know where to go if their child is talented, and a lot of parents are also worried about their academics and studies. So we decided to start this residential academy so that all these worries can be taken care of, and that's how the idea started. And of course, in terms of challenges, no major challenge as of now. It's been actually a great journey so far as the residential program is concerned. We started in 2018, and then of course 2020 the COVID hit us. However, we opened 4 academies during the COVID period. So yeah, I mean, I think maybe COVID was a blessing in disguise, where since the football schools were not running, we got time to focus on residential academies, and with our full energy and focus. And that's how we are at 5 residential academies today. And our dream is to have one residential academy in every state in India. I feel every state deserves it, because nowadays, even for parents, it is a little, I mean, they don't want to send their children too far away for schooling. So yeah, I mean, every state is like a country within India, which is like a continent. So one residential academy in every state is something that we aspire to build.
Right. I think coming to again the another interesting aspect, and I think we will dwell a little more about this concept. Recently, BBFS, or rather enJogo, also has a newsletter that's called the Dugout, which is a weekly newsletter. And the recent one, in one of the recent stories, was about BBFS launching its franchisee program. I think that is something interesting that probably we can spend more than 2 minutes or so. If you can help us gather what is this idea of the BBFS franchisee, and why did you come up with something like this, and how do
Sure.
you want to go about it?
See, like you mentioned in the beginning, it's been 13 years for us. And in these 13 years, through various ups and downs, we have managed to build a financially profitable model for our non residential programs. And during this journey, we have learned a lot. And now, for the last 4 years, our focus has been to digitize everything and transform our company into from an offline company to a technology led company, meaning that every service, every product that we provide to the customer should be available through multiple layers of technology. So in the same way, even in the technical side also, we have been able to provide hundreds of players the opportunity to play at the national level, several of them going on to represent the national team at different age groups, as well as currently a lot of players in the ISL have been our graduates. So during this entire journey, we also learned a lot about not just the operating side of it, the marketing and sales side of it, but also the technical side of it, of how to develop young players. Now, so we thought that why should this not be available to every person in India who wants to invest in sport and wants to have an academy or a club of his or her own. So with this thought, what we decided was to codify all our knowledge and expertise that we have learned over the period of more than a decade, and present it to people who would be willing to invest into the sport. In doing so, the entire investment goes into the academy itself, of the franchisee, and it can also be a very very fulfilling business journey for the investors or for the franchisee partners, the same way that it has been for us. So basically, in short, what we are doing is combining, we want to share our brand, our technical expertise, and our technology and our operational know-how to help as many people to start grassroots programs across the country as possible.
And since you've announced the launch of this program, can may I or maybe all get to know probably how has the response been so far?
Oh, the response has been absolutely brilliant, actually, and we have been getting calls every day. But the challenge is that we do not have the operating capacity to, give out a franchise to everyone, every interested person. So what we will be doing is maybe shortlist 10 to 15 in the first round, and then make sure that they are a success, because now our franchisee partners will become like our customers. So we will be totally invested in the entire operations of these new businesses, and we would like to make sure that each and every one of them is a huge success, and then we will think about scaling up with a 10x or 20x vision. But for now, it is basically with 10, 15, we want to make sure the model is a success, and the entire team will kind of put in all their focus and energies into ensuring that.
Right. My last point on the franchisee bit is that you mentioned that you'll be shortlisting the first 10 to 15 and then go about it. So, what is the criteria like for you when you shortlist these partners that have come on board?
See, the biggest one will be alignment in terms of the value system and the long term thinking. Youth development in any field is not like a short term journey, it is a long term journey. A child needs a lot of different kinds of support right from the age of 5 until say 17, 18. And the child, it's himself or herself goes through different stages of his life cycle. Like their personalities change, their thoughts change, so it is really a long term kind of a commitment. So we would be looking for people with most importantly with like minded people, and the real long term commitment should be there. It is no different from actually hiring people in the company, where we are always looking for people who are willing to learn, open minded, and who are ready to commit in the long run, and have the same value system or an aligned value system to what we have in our company.
Right. Now, I cannot let you go without asking the last question to you, which is you've worked with AIFF in the past, but we won't delve into the past. But the present is that we have a new regime on board. And they recently, I think earlier this month, they released a Vision 2047, which is that's what they called. And they also had a initial first 3 year plan, which would they implement by 2026 and then eventually 2047. As a key stakeholder, in Indian football, and you will continue to be, and you want to build BBFS. But all of this would come under, the different things that the federation is also doing, because even that would probably hinder the process or help the process. So, as someone part of the process, what is your take, or if you want to shed some light of your own personal perspective and with the light of BBFS?
See, if I have to give a general answer to this question, I think for me there are two, three positive things, right? One is that the willingness of the team to look long term, is obviously something that is good. Because even within our company as well, we try to work in the same way. I mean, the short term things are not so critical. Basically, if something is not for the long term, then why even care to build it today? So that is one positive thing I feel. The second thing is, I think also what is laudable is that they have actually had the courage to put their goals in writing and put it up there in public, so that after 5 years, 10 years, people can come back and assess their progress. So that also I think requires a little bit of courage to do that. And when I look at, like you rightly said, it's a vision document. So in my opinion, vision is includes not just goals, but also, which is basically what you want to achieve, but also how you are going to achieve that, right? But again, the new regime has not had enough time, I feel, with the and they have put up this vision document. But I would love to see all the goals being successfully implemented. I would love to see that, as an Indian football lover. But I feel it is important to focus on the hows as well. How, you know the various things that are mentioned in the document, how yeah, are we going to achieve them? Okay, and that's where I think that's the $1 million question. Every Indian lover would want India to be, amongst the top four in Asia, to qualify for the World Cup, and the youth teams doing really well in the continental championships, and more teams in the professional leagues, and so on, more number of coaches, and so on. But I think the real challenge lies in identifying the how, how to achieve them. And I'm sure the team has kind of thought about it, and they have some plans up their sleeve. But yeah, I mean, that's my initial thought. If you ask for an overall general perspective on the vision document itself.
Right. Now, I'll leave you at that. But if I may ask you, the final question to you is what's the vision for probably, say, 5, 10 years down the line for BBFS?
Oh, yeah, we have a very ambitious plan. So what we do is, as part of our internal planning process, we start off with a very, firstly, of course, more clarity about our values and our culture, and our long-term purpose, which can outlive us as well. But then we break that down to a long-term, 8 to 10 year plan, which is basically a very audacious goal. So our goal, it's twofold. We have a twofold long-term audacious goal, which is basically, the first is to train 1 million children, and the second one is to help develop 10 international icons. When I say 10 international icons, it is basically players who are not just good enough for the Indian national team, but also can play at the European level. I know it's a very audacious goal to have in 10 years time, 12 years time, people will laugh at it, but we are going to work towards it. And in that sense, I saw in the AIFA vision document also that by 2047 the goal is to have at least one international icon. I definitely feel that can be a bit more ambitious, I feel. Because I know that it may not be possible in 8 to 10 years time, but it is still important to think big and think audacious, because unless we have an audacious goal, we are not going to think out of the box. Having an audacious goal forces us to actually think differently, and sometimes we end up surprising ourselves as well with the results, something which we have experienced with BBFS over the last 13 years. We have ended up doing things which we had never even dreamt of when we had started. So yeah, that's our audacious goals, for the next 8 to 10 years. Develop 10 international icons and train a million children.
Well, to all the listeners, you have the vision for BBFS here as well, and you can probably come back and check. You can keep this episode handy and bookmark it if you want, and save it if you want, because you can come back and check if they have actually implemented all of what they've said, or at least try to implement. Thank you, Kishore Taid. Thank you for your time, for taking your time from, you still with your family back home and joining me on my show. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Siju. Thanks for the time, and thanks for inviting me once again.
Yeah. Well, all our lovely listeners, thank you so much for tuning in always. And I have to give a shout out and big ups to IW Studios, because this episode I'm bringing you directly from the studio space. So hopefully, with all the coming episodes, I will sound excited just like this, because I'm finally doing it from the studio. So thanks to the team and to all you lovely people. Please support and share. Once again, follow us on your preferred audio platform. We may be available on YouTube, but please get onto your preferred audio platform and follow and subscribe. Also, leave a rating. Thank you once again. I'm your host, Siju, and you are listening to the Totally Indian Football Show.